Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Jenny Aiello, and this is With Love, Jenny, a podcast where we meet ourselves right in the heart of our vulnerability and authenticity. In this sacred space, where it's just you and I dive into real life, rich with wisdom and opportunities for deep healing. I explore what it means to truly connect to ourselves, to each other, and to something much greater than us all. In each podcast, I like to meet life right where it touches us most, in our tenderness, in our truth, in our struggles and our strength. So wherever you are on your journey, or whatever it is that you're carrying, no matter how light or heavy, just know I'm so grateful that you're here with me today. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's begin today's episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of With Love, Jenny. I'm here with my co-host, Kristen, and we are continuing a discussion about trauma with our guest, Grace Scarborough. Grace lives in Western North Carolina and does a trauma practice that's called somatic experience. She is a somatic experience practitioner and works remotely. So you don't have to be in Western North Carolina to be blessed with her magic, is what I call it. If you didn't listen to part one of our two-part episode with Grace, I would invite you to turn this episode off and go back and listen to the last episode, episode 16, where we introduced the concept of trauma and this approach to recognizing what trauma is and steps you can take when you are activated in a trauma response and or a way to address it through releasing it. It's not the same as a typical therapy would do. Dealing with trauma is real specialized, and many of us had no idea. I know for me that I had no earthly idea how much I had stored up trauma in my body and in my system. And working with Grace has been just invaluable, and it has caused already so much healing in my life and in the life of my family and relationships. And we're going to just dive even further into it. And Kristen is going to share a little bit about her experience. I shared a lot about mine in the last episode. So she's got her really good insights and questions for Grace, and also sharing of her own experiences. So Kristen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. I've been trying to think about where I wanted to start with this, and I think I'm going to start with my anxiety. I've grown up with anxiety, and I think a lot of it is a response to the environment that I grew up in. I never had like crazy major trauma happen, like as in like one specific situation, but the environment that I grew up day in and day out, now I see it caused a lot of trauma. But in my late 30s, I guess I would say, I got to a point where I was so sick of my anxiety. Like I could not take it anymore. I was waving the white flag, and I asked for help, and I got help in such a spiritual way that can never be more thankful. But Jenny walked into my life, and I started with a life coach, and we had been working, I think, at least a year, and it got to a point where my anxiety was still, it was a blockage maybe from me going any further. So Jenny suggested that I see a therapist. And I'm so thankful that I found a therapist that does a technique that you've heard me talk about before called EMDR, because I do believe that talk therapy does have its place. But for people that have had deep trauma, you need different modalities to help get through it, release it, whatever you want to call it. And real quick, EMDR is just another way to reprocess trauma in your brain to help you heal it, stored trauma. And now that I'm saying this, in your brain. So I've been hearing about somatic experiencing. I did actually experience it at my first trauma retreat with Jenny. I met Grace. I got to choose an option of either being with her or a massage therapist on one of the days. And I was really intrigued. And I'm like, what is this? I didn't even know what I was walking into. I just knew that it was going to be healing. So I was open, and I'm a very open book when it comes to healing. So the particular retreat that I went to was in an environment where there was a very loud running stream that you could not escape from. Like it was right there. and I get sensory overload very easily. I need quiet to regulate myself, which I didn't know for a very long time. And so I sat down with Grace, and first of all, she is the calmest person I have ever met that I didn't know what to do with myself. That I had to like bring myself down because I can come into any kind of session, boom. And I think I told Jenny before, I had a boyfriend that wrote a song about me in the chorus was she comes along like a marching band. And that is me. And I really have to really try not to do that in situations. And sometimes I wonder if that is a trauma response. So I said to Grace, she's like, well, what's going on? I'm like, well, in this moment, I cannot get past the sound outside of the room. And she's like, well, what I want you to do is I want you to take your fingers and put them on your ears and slowly, as slow as you possibly can, push in to close out the noise. And I'm like, this is so weird, but okay, I'll do it. And I did it. And I just held it there, and I could feel my body releasing, like the noise was too much for me. And that was my very first experience with somatic healing. Now, the whole session was very profound to me. It was a healing experience around a relationship that happened with me after my son was born. And I thought, oh, this is amazing. I need this. And I got out of the session. I'm like, okay, Grace, I'm going to contact you. And I didn't. It took like 2 or 3 more years for me to be like, I'm ready. And Grace, you said something, I don't know if it was in the blessing room or in the actual last session of the podcast, but you said, when your body is ready, that's when you come. And I think from doing all the work with Jenny, and then doing on top of that with the EMDR, like, I don't think my body would have really been ready for this until this year. Intuitively now thinking about this. And I said to Jenny in December, I'm like, it's time. I have to do this. Like, there are still things stuck in my body that we have been trying to work on that I need more outside of retreat. And like, the coaching calls are different. Like, Jenny really helps me work through things, but like the stuckness of, I really want people to understand this. Like, trauma is really stored physically in your body. And you need to, well, I suggest that you really look into somatic experiencing if you want to release it. It is very awkward if you are a fast-paced person. It is very awkward if you're an analytical thinker. But I've had, I think, 4 sessions now, and I can see how this is going to work. And it's not like, in the Western world, give me a pill, let's get this done. It's like, I'm going to go to the gym, and I need to commit myself to this and know that I'm going to maybe start seeing results in 6 months, as if you were working on your arm muscles. Right now, I think I'm still in the awkward phase where slowing down, I'm like, okay, I really don't know what is happening here. And in my first session, Grace really had me take in the room that I was in. And I'm like, okay. She's like, I really want you to look around the room and let your eyes do what they want to do. And as I was doing it, I didn't really realize how tense my body was, how I was holding my muscles, but I really felt myself relax. And I think the environment that you're in really helps the healing process. Like, I think there's a benefit of being in person with Grace, but I can't be in person with Grace because we live 3 hours away. And we got to a point where we were talking about, I'm like, I really am in my dream house that as a little girl I used to draw sketches of. I really am in that fairy tale book house with the garden in the backyard and the stream behind my house. And I think having these sessions with her in my safe place is going to be really profound, because I was locked up in my childhood, not locked up in quotes, but like in this suffocating apartment full of depression. And I need to physically see that I'm not in that anymore. And I have this lightness in my house, but when I grew up in too muchness. Everything was too much, too on top of everything. There was no space. There was no room for expansion. And when too muchness comes on me now, I immediately go back there. I'm immediately cramped up in this apartment with hoarder stuff. And there's no space for me to breathe, even though I'm physically in a space where I can breathe. So it's really neat to be able to work with Grace in an environment that is healthy for me. Not to say that her office wouldn't be healthy for me. A couple of things to note before I let Grace talk. So my goal this whole time, and Jenny knows, is to feel like I can breathe. I feel like I can look in a vast area and feel expansive, because that's where I truly feel like Kristen. But I can immediately go back into being imprisoned. And Grace gave me a resource in our last session that I've really been thinking about, and of visual, because I'm very visual. And I'm like, Grace, I feel like I'm in this tight balloon that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But it's like, yeah, there is space in there, but I feel so constricted because something's going to pop. And she's like, well, why don't we start letting air out of the balloon? And that was a big aha to me, to like just visually, because I was in a very irritated moment when I got on the call with her and she brought me down. But to visually feel that balloon tightening, lessening, and breathing out the air, I was like, oh, I can do this. So that was really neat. And she's been giving me different resources to help come down. But I told her, I'm like, but when I'm in these triggered states, I am not rational. And Jenny has given me a lot of tools too. Like, I don't think of these tools. So I keep thinking that the more that I work with Grace, and we're actually using these tools in the session, like we're not just talking about them, because she won't let me. She will not let me talk about it. She keeps bringing me back into the moment and using these resources, which is like, okay, it's like an exercise. I have to like keep doing this to let my body know that it can be done. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about before I let Grace speak. We did kind of talk about the word relational, and I think it was in the blessing room, about a lot of this healing being relational. And in my last session, I was my 12-year-old Kristen in this car pouting. I was so angry. I don't remember why I was angry, but we were at Pizza Hut, to bring you back to the 80s. And I was so mad that I stayed in the car while my mom and sisters went and had lunch. So Grace and adult Kristen went and sat in the car with angry ass Kristen, who did not know what to do with herself. She had no resources. But the fact that we allowed it to be a different situation and she acknowledged adult Kristen and Grace, I could just feel her softening, and she just wanted to bawl because she wasn't she didn't want to be throwing a tantrum and being so angry, but there was no one to help her. And to have these adult, healthy people there, she didn't know what to do but want to cry. So it's been an interesting journey, and I cannot wait to see where it goes.
Well, Kristen, thank you for sharing all of that, because, well, first, Grace is going to dive in. I'm sure she has so many things to address in that. But from your life coach that has worked with you all these years and traveled this journey with you, the one thing I will say is that's so profound that I want to reiterate is it is a bit like going to the gym. You don't go get strong the first visit. As a matter of fact, you're kind of sore and like, whoa, that wasn't fun. But it does take time and consistency and resource. You don't just go do the same one thing at a gym. They recommend you do different things to hit different muscles differently. And that's the way I view our healing journeys, is talking to a life coach or a therapist and doing somatic and doing body work and attacking, I want to call it attacking, but that's traumatic, but approaching it from different modalities and then staying consistent over time. And you do see results sooner than 6 months, but you aren't really going to see the big impact if you don't have that consistency. So Grace, I would love for your thoughts about what that would look like, or what is that consistency, or what is that timeline that people should kind of use as a framework if they want to just start. So I'm going to let you address all the rest of everything she just brought up.
Thank you both. And thank you, Kristen, for everything you shared. I'm going to do the thing that is probably annoying, which is just to pause for a moment, right? And this is part of doing somatic experiencing work, is that the things that we put in the field the space between us affects one another. And so Kristen shared some really poignant moments. And I'm guessing that for those of you listening, that you may have been stimulated in your own way with your own experience with anxiety, or your own experiences with therapists, or with trying to manage it on your own. And so, yeah, just maybe even noticing how that is to be listening to a podcast with Jenny and Kristen, who are seeking to provide an option, so that this right now, listening to us, is hopefully a resource for your system. And it's okay if it isn't, too. But just kind of tuning into that. So I took a few notes, but I'll just see, Kristen, it's interesting to me that this physical gesture of fingers to the ears is something that's remembered 3 years later. So I think of that as a physical insight. And so we can have emotional and spiritual and psychological insights and then share them with people. And somehow in our culture, a physical insight doesn't seem quite as, doesn't have the power punch. But that's a really important physical insight. And it is even something that, for those of you listening, so long as you're not driving, we could even try a variation of that. I know a lot of people are on the computer screen, right? And that creates, I believe, a certain amount of freeze. Your eyes and the muscles around your eyes are focused in one particular way. Your neck is focused in a particular way. It doesn't get the movement, right? So even taking a moment and taking your hands, you might even warm them up. I'm kind of hearing me warming my hands up. And closing your eyes and placing your hands on your eyes. And this is something that, in a yoga class you might do. But how I'm going to make this a little different is to suggest giving your eyes a chance to feel that covering. And then you might peel your hands away slightly and let the light in. And then close again. So, and I see Jenny and Kristen are doing this. Yeah, so this is one way to allow your body to downregulate in ways that you may not have even realized that it was kind of activated and stuck on. So for all of you with computer jobs where you're stuck on all day long, yeah. I'm just curious how that was for Jenny and Kristen to do that.
It was very relaxing. I didn't realize how much tension I carried in my eyes. It's like I keep being amazed at where it can hide out.
Yeah, I'm so amazed. I don't think that most people realize how much we are stuck on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that leads me to, I'm going to call it kind of like a hitting bottom, what you said in your 30s with anxiety. And the boyfriend talking about, or writing was it a poem or a song about the marching band comes in. So this on energy, and this is Grace's opinion, I feel like it's like a big rush of fight. And it's a way of protecting against one more thing coming in, because I'm full. I can't take any more. And so I'm just going to rush at you with a bunch of energy so that nothing else can come into my field.
Mm.
So it is one way of managing, and I believe in the intelligence of our bodies. So the body's intelligence of managing all of this information and people coming at us. What with the fingers to the ears, the hands to the eyes, it's another way of managing that, of like, how would it be to slow down and to titrate, to just allow in the amount that felt right for your body? And that's a profound question. I mean, it's slow and it's boring and it's not as interesting as getting to beat a pillow and scream and, have this major catharsis. But what research is starting to show is that catharsis, people just keep coming back week after week to have more catharsis, and it's still there and it's still running the show. So how can we kind of get under the radar of the catharsis, or that like desire to whoosh, and to start to work with the energy in a little slower manner? You also named, Kristen, that you're living in a home where it is the dream. And I'm just smiling, and I see Jenny smiling for you too as you're sharing that. I'm underlining that because trauma deceives us into believing that it's happening right now. And so here is this goodness happening, and the body is not taking it in. And part of that is the mind. We're set up to notice the negative. We have a negativity bias, right? So the negativity bias means it's a way of protecting ourselves as well. What's wrong? What's wrong in our environment? And let's fix it. What's wrong with my body? Let's fix it. What's wrong with somatic experiencing? Turns it upside down and says, oh, you just named that you're in your dream home. How would it be to let your body drink in that experience, even for 5 seconds? And I'll say something as short as 5 seconds, knowing that many people's bodies might only be able to drink that in for half a second. But half a second is going to be longer than what was happening before. And so I've said a lot. There's a few more points that you brought up, Kristen, but I'd like to check in with Jenny and you, Kristen, to see how this is going. Yeah.
Yeah, it's helping to clarify. And I know that, we've had those questions about what am I noticing? And then when you start to notice, like, I'm wound up, or I'm on, or I'm keyed up. We use these phrases, and I'm like, well, when we start to dissect or pull apart what it means to be keyed up and how I got keyed up, and is this a negativity bias? Is this the beginning of an anxiety feeling? Is this me running from? Is this me in flight from a traumatic thing, and I'm darting away from it because I feel I was moving toward danger? How do I know once I start pulling all this apart? And that's why I think you need to have an outside source, because in it's touching on the very thing you're afraid to feel or don't know where it is, and you don't know what you're doing. It's like, I could not do my own brain surgery. So
Right.
You have to go to an expert that can and say, what is this? And the question that I run back to, because Kristen opened with a little bit of her story of anxiety, and is all anxiety rooted in a form of trauma? Are there various degrees of trauma? Does it have to be super bad to be trauma? Or can there be versions of trauma that just the energy got stuck there in our fear and it created anxiety? And is that necessarily under the umbrella of trauma? And if it isn't, can somatic still address that? And those are all my questions. I'll let you answer.
Well, those are a lot of really good questions, and I don't know that I have. I'll do my best with them. So there's a physical component and there's a cognitive component. And so I really love I like to work with people who are working with, my voice is getting a little raspy. To all the listeners, I enjoyed karaoke last night.
I love it.
So I really enjoy working collaboratively, and I also feel like that is very helpful for those seeking somatic experiencing. So that means working with a therapist, working with a life coach, and seeing a somatic experiencing therapist. So with anxiety, there can be a cognitive component where the thoughts, and this is not my area of expertise, but where the thoughts begin to create a feeling in the body, right? Mm-hmm. But then there is also this body component where there might have been a trauma that happened with being seen, with being heard, with standing out, right? That's where then we can work with that, right? And then it's really working together. And I like that you said it's like going to the gym, time, consistency, and developing resources, because I think what, for me as a body worker for so many years is I was starting to tire of being seen as some kind of magician that created cure, because really the cure was in the person's body, and they were the magicians because they were telling me exactly what they needed. And I was really simply just reflecting that back for years and years before I became a somatic experiencing practitioner. So if Kristen had come to me for massage and had mentioned the balloon, well, I would have just gone with that. That wasn't something that I had in my toolbox. That was something that arose naturally from her lived experience. I might not be quite answering the question around anxiety directly. I feel like there's listening to a person's own internal intelligence, working with it cognitively, and then working with it somatically. And I guess the other piece I heard in there was almost like a hitting bottom. And I think I said that before with the anxiety. So I've noticed as a body worker and as a somatic experiencing therapist that people often have tried a lot of different things and it just hasn't worked. And so now there's a willingness to go, okay, let's see what this thing is about. I think all of those things are great and they just need to happen together. And I want people to feel empowered versus I'm the one in power guiding them. That to me is when something is really shifting, when they feel a sense of empowerment in their own body.
Yeah. And I mentioned that in our last episode because it is when you get us to that space. And it does take, because I think what you do does feel magical, but I love what you said, that doesn't make you the magician, but you expose a place where we partner that. And I think my definition of that word magic is unexpected and unexplained. Mm-hmm. And when you're in a somatic healing process, it's hard to explain what just happened because it's so unexpected when it does and how it does and when it does. It's just creating the space for it. And I can't do that without, in that moment, I'm going to avoid it to protect myself from it. But you create such a calm presence and a guidance that slows it down. And we sit in that half a second, pull it apart, and it's like a butterfly comes out. You're like, oh, what was that?
Yeah. Well, I want to comment too. She slows you down so much that the good things happen, but also traumas come out that you forgot about.
Yes, that's
and we
right.
start talking about things. I'm
that's
like,
right.
Where did that come from? Oh my gosh. I didn't realize how much I had buried that made me, I didn't remember it. So she slows you down that things just start coming up and can be a little scary, but Grace is such a safe place that you feel okay for it to come up. But man, some of these things that have come up, I'm like, I don't even know where that came from.
Yeah. And that's real important to go back to, Kristen, is that at no time in any of the somatic experience in person or over remote, have I ever felt nervous or unsafe or scared. I don't re-experience anything because I'm not really telling the story. It just shows up, like Kristen said. It's like you're not going in there reliving trauma. You're going in there with your body, slowing it down, allowing it to express itself, finding this sweet spot to expand, and then, wow. But it's not a bad experience when it's like, to me, it's like this, it's like I open up a box and butterflies come out. It's transformational. It's delightful. It's inspiring. I don't know. It's beautiful. The work is beautiful. So yes.
What both of you are sharing is so wonderful. So you're naming safety and the power of being in resource. So that is probably, I'm certainly bringing education and experience to a session, but ultimately wanting to help empower the other to experience have their own experience and find their own ways that safety arises for them. Because it's interesting. Safety can feel different for different people based on our histories and personalities. And so that's what I'm listening for, is how to create safety, because that's often what was absent, no matter if it was a one and done trauma or if it was a cumulative developmental trauma. And then Kristen, you named, when you stay in the resource, that often a trauma will arise. And that's something that they say in the trainings. So there's a tendency for people to come into a session and say, I did this. Oh my gosh, I cringe a little bit when I think about it. My first trauma healing work was very analytical as well. And I had detailed at least 30 traumas, and I'd written about them, and I brought in the list, and I was like, here we go. Okay. And so we're going to work A, B, write down the list. We didn't do that, as you know. And instead, what we did and what I try to do with people is to find their resource. And it might be something like, I love this question because it often brings people to a place of their resource. A time in the past week when you felt most like yourself. And once somebody starts talking about that, for me, last night, I'm not a singer. I'm off key. I'm not quite sure what harmony or pitch or tone or anything is. But I was singing one song with a friend who is a singer, and he was so kind and he was so supportive. And afterwards, he does this professionally, and he was like, way to go, Grace, that the tin roof rusted of Love Shack. You really nailed that, So there I was in resource, and I guarantee if I hung out there long enough, the trauma of when that didn't happen will emerge.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. And so this is the beauty. Somatic experiencing will often start with resource for two reasons. One, I know the trauma is going to emerge. I don't have to make it happen. Your body will naturally, it'll percolate up. And two, we have a safe place to come back to that is a somatic experience that you've had, not an exercise I'm creating.
Wow. Yeah. That's really powerful to know. Mm-hmm. Just to know I don't have to force it. It'll show up, and I have my own resource available. Just have to remember to use it.
and what I'm hoping to do with this, Kristen, I think you mentioned The Wizard of Oz. You're not the only one. It makes me want to go back and watch that movie over and over. It has so many wonderful metaphors. So receiving somatic experiencing can feel like some kind of magic, some kind of wizardry. And like, I have a lot of clients, even before I did this as a massage therapist, like, you're a witch. And I really embrace that. I don't mind
but
being
if
witchy
slowing
at all.
down to regulate your nervous system is a witch, then
I know.
It's
It's funny. But, like the Wizard of Oz, what I'm trying to explain is like pull back the curtain so that you can see what me is just another human, the little guy behind the curtain is doing and what this is about. So that there's a lot of neuroscience now that supports this work, even though it feels magical to receive.
And so to give people a little bit of a glimpse of something that Grace and I did, in an EMDR session, I get a lot of 80s references when I go in to reorganize my brain. But I saw somebody that was triggering me as the hologram of the great and powerful Oz. But then I realized, that's a hologram. That's not real. And then I saw myself in my EMDR session pull back the curtain and see this as a weak person and scared. So Grace had me to help me I don't know if we were helping me heal with that person, but she had me slowly take my actual arm and keep opening the curtain so my body could realize that it's not this triggering great and powerful hologram over here. This is what's really happening. How can I support myself?
And the fact that you physically open a curtain, imaginary curtain, by moving your arm as if you are, because, I'm imagining you putting your hand out and moving it to the left or right. And the physical motion of that is key, right, Grace? Like that's what somatic experiencing. It's a somatic physical movement or action or slowing. I remember in one of our sessions, something so silly. We did something and you asked me to, like, what do you notice? Kind of went into reorienting me. And I was like, I don't know when it happened, but my shoes are off and my legs are crossed and my foot is wrapped around my ankle, like double crossed. I was in a knot down there. Like I couldn't have run. I was like frozen. And so that became the focus of slowly unwrap your ankle, flex your foot. I'm doing it right now. And then let your legs uncross and put your feet on the ground. And we did that very, very slowly. It maybe took a minute to even unwind myself. And then you said, and ever so slowly, 1 foot at a time, slide your shoe back on as slow as you can. Just, well, it sounds peaceful and calm and like move slow, but it's painful a little bit for me. Like I want to get my shoes on now and figure out why the heck I felt knotted up, right? But in that slowly putting my shoes on, and then you had me look at the door, and I just looked at the door like, I'm okay. And I think that's the feeling that little moment we talk about when we want to expand it is, in Kristen's, in our last episode that, we talked about, you survived, you're here. And for me, it's, you're okay. Nothing is threatening me right now. But you're right, Grace, in what you said about we take that trauma when it activates, it's like it's happening all over again. It's not a memory anymore. It's a physical, visceral feeling of how you felt when you were stuck in it decades ago, decades, a half a century ago for me. The other thing.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
Yeah, with that, because that's so powerful what you just shared. And part of that slowing it down was when it happened decades ago, you probably felt like you had no choice. So there was a freeze, right? There was all this mobilization to move, to do something, and there was frozen. The slowing it down, for one, it allows for these gentle releases. That's why you said it wasn't like this relaxing thing. It was like, okay, this is really intense. My heart's pounding. I'm having a hard time catching my breath. This is so weird. I'm just slipping my shoe on. So then we just back off a little bit. Okay, then we come back in. And then what I heard from you is that there was a realization in there when we worked with your body that you had a choice. But looking at the door, it's like, oh, okay, I can leave. And that's the new piece. And that's the neuroplasticity. That's actually creating a new experience, a new somatic experience in that old one. And so that old one will never be the same.
Yes.
So, Grace, for the listeners, for trauma, I think you kind of said this before, like things don't come to completion. So then it gets stored in your body. What does that mean when we say it gets stored in your body?
I believe that it can look like anxiety. It can look like nervous tics. It can look like, I'm just a type A person. I just need to be on the go. I mean, I've never done well settling down, and I don't like to settle down, and I like to, be going. Or it can be just this, like, if a person settles down, the energy's right there. So what if I just grab a drink? Oh, all right. Well, there it comes again. Okay, I need to grab another drink. It's down. And none of this is conscious, but these are management strategies for an energy that is attempting to complete itself.
Wow.
That's interesting. I'm thinking yesterday I finally had a moment to myself. I was in the house for myself for a couple hours and I was so excited. I'm like, I'm going to eat what I want. I'm going to read a book. And where did my mind go? It went to my mom. And I thought about Grace. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to allow myself in this moment to enjoy being by myself. I'm not going to go and freak out about something that there's nothing I can do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of big for me when I realized that last night, because I could have gone in a spiral, felt like I needed to call her, because I found there was nothing stopping me from thinking about this kind of stuff. I wasn't on the go.
Right.
But I had a resource to pause and be like, you know what? Because Grace is like, Kristen, you got to start allowing yourself to play, allowing yourself joy. And I'm like, this is a moment where I can allow myself joy and read my favorite book and not go into old patterns of loop thinking.
Worry. And and
way to go. Yay.
Yeah. Congratulations on that shift, Kristen, because I know how
You know how hard that is for me.
I know how hard and how different that was for you to do that instead.
Okay, Jenny, I know you want to say something, and I just saw something Kristen did with her body. Again, some people, I'm like this. My body is having a whole other thing while I'm speaking. And her fingers did this thing where it's like it's pinching something small. And I don't know if that means, that was a small moment, right? But I might even explore that, and how that is, I try to take it as a guess. I'm going to guess that's a small moment, but how would it be to sit with that small moment and see if we can expand it by just being
to allow myself joy. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. These are the things that Grace does. And we're like, oh, what'd I do? What'd you see?
Yeah. She's watching your body the whole time you talk, and it's giving her
because it's where it is. Right. And it's talking. Before we close, I could spend all day asking questions and exploring all of this. It's so fascinating to me. But the one incompletion of this discussion for me is something you said a while back here in this episode about what might show up if we were to be still. And some people will say, if I say, have you ever tried meditation? And they're, oh, I can't do that. When I sit down, and I'm like, might be good. And all you have to do is notice that that's what you do and allow it, because it's a way of expressing something. Most of the time it's expressing something we don't want to deal with. And I think that's what makes us jump up and run from being still. So I wanted to circle back to that. But what you said was maybe in that moment, what's going to show up is a time when you were seen or a time when you were heard. And that was like, woo, that was really big for me when you said it, because I have such trauma around being seen. And I have pretty much dedicated my coaching practice to listening, because I experienced myself the healing power of being heard, not just the words I spoke, but the meaning behind those words. To really fully be heard is rare. Most people stop listening 5 seconds in and start thinking about something else, and they enter back in, and they don't really fully hear what it is that anyone is conveying. And then in my healing journey and coaching practice, my coach training was its own healing process for me. I realized I used to talk so much, what's called a word salad. I would go on and on and on and still do it if I leave it unchecked. And I think I realized in my coach training that I did that because I so desperately needed someone to hear and witness what I was experiencing. And I thought more words would do that. And what I found is that less did it better, but I had to go through a whole process of my own to get there. But why would it be traumatic to be seen? Why would someone feel trauma to be seen? I guess that's a question for you, Grace. And why might it feel like a trauma reaction of being heard?
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. As I know that our listeners, and certainly I can relate to that, and I know people are relating to that. I really believe it touches into something bigger and cultural about the ways that we don't see and hear, and the groups of people that get to be seen and heard, and those of us who don't get to be seen and heard. And I would say that being seen it has an excitation to the nervous system. It doesn't necessarily need to be traumatic, but it probably was coupled or paired together with something that was traumatic. And so we might work with that in a way to bring in an experience of it being seen and just having the exciting, good feelings of sharing and being seen. So, I can think of an exercise right now, but I don't know where we are on time.
Well, one of the things I want to share with our listeners, because I don't know if it happened for anyone else, when you shared that last night you were invited to be, a part of karaoke, and that you were singing with a professional singer. Obviously, you were being seen. Obviously, you were being heard. I felt trauma. I heard a thought that said, I'd never do something like that. But the last time I was me, I wouldn't have cared, and I would have done that. The authentic Jenny
yes.
would love that much fun.
Mm-hmm.
But this one sitting here went, ooh, I'd never do that. That would be so scary. And that's a way you find that you have some trauma. To me, that's like, why? Why would I be afraid of that? What am I afraid of? Kristen is on my administrative team and marketing, and it's like, I want you to do videos. People want to see you when you talk. People want to, and the camera and I are not comfortable together yet. And I tell her all the time, like, if you only knew what it took for me to allow myself to be seen, because other people are like, just do it. Like, what's the problem? And I think that's how we are in society, where something might be so easy that I can't imagine it being traumatic for someone else. And yet they're stuck. And you want to just go, what is wrong? Just do it. The Nike thing, just do it. You'll get over it. And you don't, unless you do some work around it to release that block.
Yeah. The backstory to that for me was 2 years of playing with this group of people. And for those of you listening, if you have even one person, and it's not perfect safety because humans are imperfect, right? But if you have even one person in your court that you can feel relatively safe with, that is a beautiful starting point. And it just takes time. And then it also takes courage of testing that, because you might test it and go, oh, that wasn't safe. Okay, I'm going to draw back a little. Okay, now I'm going to try again. Oh, wow, that was well received. And then it's letting that into your body. And with this particular group of people, every time we played together, there was one friend that we would go and talk about it afterwards. And she would really help me see, oh, that was a safe moment. Oh, that was another one. Okay, so it was rebuilding over the course of 2 years, a place inside of me that could feel safe enough to, it sounds kind of silly to sing one song.
Right.
Again, no one's going to die from this.
No.
And yet that's how it can, right. So safety is so important.
Well, and I want to make one note too. A lot of people use liquid courage for karaoke, and Grace did not have a drink at all. So this is like a big moment.
And this group of people didn't drink at all. And
right.
That also
so it's like
felt
you weren't
safe.
Using something else. You actually got to a place where you could do it.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's an important thing, because I think we, as a society, that's how we access our own safety, is to numb. And what if you healed it and you just got to experience that freedom all the time, right? Like
huge. It's huge.
Huge.
How can this be a gift?
Right. So yes, this is the way that I think I want to kind of give our listeners some tangible things of what we're talking about, because it's a high level approach to a deep level stuckness that we have that's a lot of times unconscious to us. We don't even know it's there. And so how do you know what you're looking for? And I think it's when you back away, when you say, oh, I'm too afraid to do that, and listening to that fear and respecting it as a form of self-protection, but investigating it to make sure it's not a form of limitation on something that maybe you authentically would enjoy, and leading you to something that just because it's foreign doesn't make it wrong to explore. And so, yeah, so many little cues. And my hope after these 2 episodes for our listeners is that you begin to be that self-aware. It starts there. Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired of something? Are you tired of living in so much fear that you're no longer really living? Are you pretty happy and content and life is good, but there's this one thing, are you riddled with anxiety over little things? Are you having power struggles in your relationship? I think we might dedicate a few minutes to this question because I feel like it's profound, but a lot of our relationships bring this out. I think we run into our trauma through relationship just as much as we do through, stimulus outside ourselves, like let's go skydiving tomorrow. Some people might be like, eh. So Grace, can you talk about that and the relational aspect?
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm making a note to put in the notes. The training that I've received is from, it's called DARE, Dynamic Attachment Repatterning Experience. And the person who developed this worked side by side with the person who developed somatic experiencing. And she was just very aware that this traumas aren't one and done. They happen in relationship. So if you go to the DARE site, there are some questionnaires where you can get a sense of how much trauma you're holding in relationship with others and a sense of what your attachment style is. And so these attachment styles are really body-based, and I'm just coming up with this now, they're ways of regulating our nervous systems in relation to others.
Wow.
Yeah. So it really is taking somatic experiencing to a whole new level. So then the person, myself, and other practitioners are there to provide or to name sometimes what happened that should have happened and what happened that shouldn't have happened. And also to allow a person to see how their nervous system is in relationship. Sometimes a person might downregulate by getting space, and we've called that avoidant. But, it's just a label. It just means you need some space. And other people, they need to get closer and closer. Don't go away. And that's anxious, right? And there's nothing wrong with that either. That's just a label as well. And so we start to work with, well, what is it like to follow this impulse of reaching out? What is it like to follow the impulse, if it naturally arises, of backing up? And then many of us have some level of, the label is disorganized, where we've got all of that happening. And so being in relationship, at first, sometimes it is with the somatic experiencing therapist, but ultimately it becomes the empowerment that we feel within ourselves when we start to notice, when these energies are moving in these different directions.
Yes.
Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Yes. And I think that if you are in the heat of a moment in a relationship, if you would I tell people, hit the pause button and do an inventory of what's happening with me right now in my body. What's happening? Where did I go? Why am I escalating? What's triggering me? Where's the source of that? When's the last time I can remember feeling that? How far back does that feeling go? And I mean, I can tell you just in the last 24 hours, so many of those moments I'm aware of. So now I've got my list. I have my list to take into my next session with Grace going, okay, here's my list, and we won't even do it, but we will. and it's just recognizing it. And I think it's understanding that isn't it. It isn't, oh, that's just how I am, or that's just what happened, and this is how I always act, or it's not accepting something that it's almost, to me, like we're built to store it. The human design is pretty perfect. It has a method to store that energy for us until it can't anymore. Like Kristen said, I got to a place where I couldn't do it anymore. And when we get there, it's important to know your resource. There are resources for you to say, I don't even know what it is. I just know I'm at the end of it and I need help. The most courageous words spoken, I need help. And when you are there, when you realize, I don't know if I'm ready, I just know I can't keep going without addressing this. I need help. let us hook you to that help. Let us buoy you up and choose carefully who you rely on. Calling your best friend might not be that help. It might be that stabilizer. It might be that buoy till you get the person who does know how to do this work around trauma. And I can't say that enough, because you don't want to put your trauma in the hands of somebody who's traumatized themselves and doesn't know it and has no training. It's like I wouldn't let someone else do brain surgery. I would want a good surgeon. So do be selective and mindful and educated about it, but know more than anything, there are resources. And when you begin this journey, stay on that path and let the miracles unfold. Let the release happen and experience the joy of it in big and small ways. And then heal relationally. The example I shared on our last podcast was an example of that relationship where two traumas arced off each other and further traumatized each other, and how it just takes one to stop. And if one person does this work, it ripples. The ripple effect it's endless almost. So it's very empowering. I like that word. You find out that you have a power you didn't know you had, and you learn how to use these tools. So, Kristen, any closing thoughts before we move into our blessing room?
No.
Okay. Grace, thank you so much for sharing yourself with us and your knowledge and your wisdom and your calm. You are a calm pool of water for us, and helping our listeners think about their own mental, emotional, physical health as it relates to some of these stored up, stuck energies. So we invite you to go learn more, check the show notes for some resources. I want to revisit what we said at the end of our last podcast. There are steps that you can take if even the conversation of trauma has activated anything in you, or it stirred you up in any way, or you're even worried that maybe you actually do have trauma you didn't know you had, and that's traumatizing. I don't want to make light of it, because these are feelings that are they're so intense, they're immobilizing, or they're so intense that you are embracing for the fight, or looking for that door and wanting to just run. I used to want to get in my car and drive to Tennessee. That was my word. It's like, I need to go to Tennessee. I need to drive all day, get to Tennessee and hide. That I don't know where that came from or why Tennessee, but that was my flight response. And I knew I was at my max. So if anything we've said or anything that has happened has activated, Grace, take us through 3 or 4 things they might be able to do.
Yeah. So I named some of this at the end of the last podcast, but again, it's, I'll name a new one, play.
I like that.
And it can be as easy as just tossing a ball with a person, with your dog, stepping outside, putting your feet on the ground, noticing something beautiful around you. I guarantee there is at least one small thing around you, even if it's the way the light is shimmering on a blade of grass, or the way the dirt looks in the sun. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big thing. And yeah, take it in small steps. If this has inspired you to do some work yourself, keep the bar low, keep the expectations low. You're not in a race to heal. This is about befriending your body. Yeah, thank you all so much. This has been truly, I feel honored and a pleasure to be here today.
Well, I also want to invite our listeners. I wish there was a way on this podcast for us to hear from them, but you can go, and Kristen might have to tell you how, but you can go where on Instagram or Facebook, we post our links to this podcast. You can find us there, and you can find our websites. You can email Grace. You can email me questions or comments. We really do want to hear what your thoughts are about this, what your experience is, around this topic. We'd love to hear from you. if you would like to work with Grace or find out how to work with Grace, her website will direct you how to reach her. She would love to hear from you. And if she is full, her schedule gets full, she keeps her life in balance as she needs to, but she will absolutely make sure that you are linked to a resource if she isn't it. So as always, thank you all for listening. Thank you for being with us on our little podcast here, and go be in your world. I hope today you touch your bare feet to the earth. I hope today you go outside and play. I am going to go do that because that just made my whole body feel happy when you said go play. And I hope that you just take some of these prompts and just apply them today, whether or not you feel activated in trauma. Just go do those things and find beauty around you and do all of that with love. Take care. So we are going to continue our discussion, but not in great detail. I think we covered a lot today on this episode, but I do want to invite you to go over to Patreon and find us in the Blessing Room. The link is in the show notes so that you know how to find us there. In the Blessing Room, Grace has walked us through one exercise after our last episode. Now you will have her to walk us through a second somatic experiencing exercise so you can actually experience what happens and what it's like from the comfort of your home. So we are going to hop into our Blessing Room. We hope that you will join us there and participate in another somatic experience exercise with Grace.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you found a spark of wisdom to carry with you, and maybe even a deeper invitation to heal and grow and transform through your own beautiful story. Or maybe this episode made you think of someone who could use encouragement. And if so, I hope you will share it with them. If you'd like to learn more about working with me or attending one of my healing retreats, coaching programs, and other offerings, you can visit my website at jennyaiello.com or email me directly at jenny@jaiello.com. You'll find all the links in the show notes. If today's episode touched you, it would mean the world if you would leave a review or share it with someone who might need it, or just reach out and let me know how it landed for you. I'd love to hear from you. I'm building something special here. Real stories, real life, real connection. One episode, one heart, and one story at a time. As always, with love. Oh, and this is the legal message, but mostly a message from my heart, and I just need to share this with you right now. Please know this podcast is offered solely for educational and entertainment purposes. If you find yourself triggered due to anything that was shared in this podcast, please seek professional help. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for mental health services. While I am a professional life coach, I am not a psychotherapist, nor am I a mental health clinician. So if you are struggling emotionally, please seek help because you matter, you are important, and most of all, you are worthy of doing this work, the work that leads you to a better and healthier place. Okay? All right. Thank you. And please always make enough time to take care of yourself and do so with love.